Hello everyone, it's Bringonthechaos Glizzy for another What If Naruto had an immortal body. Naruto has been living for very long time. He gotten bored because nothing interesting is happening in this century, so he's starting dating girls from another world.
Like a kick in the face. Oi, Naruto. Wake up. Blue eyes lazily creaked open to sharpened shards of sunlight, squinting against the early morning sun. Ah. Already. Naruto groaned and tried to turn over, to no avail. The light followed him wherever he went, much to his ire. Damn thing, he mused absently, swatting at it with a sleepy hand. He really should consider installing curtains in the windows one of these days. That, or blotting out the sun altogether. No, wait, that'd make everyone freeze to death. Bad idea. Curtains it was then. Ooh, maybe could make them orange, and then the carpets and the walls and the ceiling. Naruto. A tap on his forehead reminded him of when and where he was, reality reasserting itself with a soft pop of sound. Katori glared down at him, cheeks puffed out in quiet indignation, the lightest of flushes adorning her face. Adorable, really. It made him want to just grab her in a big huge. Cute. Katori colored to the very roots of her hair. Cute. Oh. Oops. He might have said that out loud. Naruto yawned. What does my beloved little sister want? Why is the army waiting outside our door? She demanded. That depends. A blink. Are they flying? Yes, but what does that have to do with anything? Well, Kurumi and I fought yesterday, but it's fine. Rolling his shoulders, he scrubbed at an eye with the back of his hand. I was able to seal her powers away for a bit using my alternative method, so I guess you could say she's under house arrest for the time being. I wouldn't be surprised if they tracked us here because of that. Wasn't exactly subtle about it. Alert, the little redhead twitched. Be by house arrest. Do you mean? Yeah. She's sleeping on the couch, downstairs. What? Sleepy. If she'd expected her shout to rouse him from his lethargy, she was going to be disappointed. Naruto simply looked at her. Glanced back to the drooling form of Toka beside him, her head nestled firmly in a pillow's warm embrace. Yawned. Then in one smooth, liquid movement, he snatched the blanket out of Kotori's hands and rolled over. To Kotori's dismay, he actually started snoring, too. Furious, she flew at him. Don't go back to sleep. Oomph. Naruto grunted in surprise as her feet crashed down into his stomach with all the force of a hurricane. Breath exploded out of him with a dry wheeze, but even then he refused to rise from the bed. His sole concession came in the form of another yawn, after which he simply rolled over and dislodged the startled redhead, depositing her neatly at the foot of the bed. Or more aptly, in his lap. Ah, if you wanted to sleep with me that much, you just had to ask. Steam. Actual steam poured out of her ears. Baka. She cried. Naruto no bakaaa. Hey. A lazy hand rose, catching her fist when she swatted at him ineffectually. Not so loud. So. Which one is it? Those JGSDF girls are Westcott and his Deus Ex Machina bastards that keep pestering us. Struggling to master her burning face, the fiery spirit shot the bemused blonde a glower. Pretty sure it's the latter. Is Tobichi with them? No. And the barrier's still up. Katori blinked. What barrier? The only currently preventing them from burning our happy little home to the ground. Here at last he sat up, that deceptively sleepy visage reflecting some semblance of emotion. You haven't tried to go outside yet, have you? At a shake of her head, his smile grew. That's why they didn't outright storm the place while we were asleep. It's also why you haven't thought to go outside, yet. A finger tapped her between the eyes. On a subconscious level, your brain simply can't think of going outside while the barrier is up. The reverse applies for those on the outside. They can shout and rail against it all they like, but they won't be coming in unless I allow it. That's actually kinda scary. Isn't it, though? He grinned. I put it up in a fit of paranoia, but. Katori growled. Just do something about those idiots, already. Naruto yawned anew. Well, alright then. It was a very expressive yawn, Katori thought. Loud enough to rattle the windows and shake their house right down to its foundations. Impressive too, well past the point of being outright brash. She knew the act was as much for her sake, as it was his own. He was trying his damnedest to be a good brother to her, to give her some semblance of a normal life, and she appreciated the effort. Admired it, even if that wasn't the kind of love she sought from him. It would have been easy for him to cut and run after the mistake he'd made so long ago, to just wipe her mind and be done with it. But he didn't, and he hadn't, and Katori adored him for it. She even found herself rather enjoying his little eccentric acts, these days. Up we go. What she did mind was the expansive view she received as the blonde sat up. Why are you naked? A blink. Why not? Pervert. Hush. Chuckling, he flicked a finger towards the still sleeping Toka. Wouldn't want to wake our princess now, would we? Princess. Meh, the name kinda stuck. With slow tottering steps, the deity stumbled out of the room, materializing clothes and a cloak as he went. For the occasion he chose to forego casual wear and stray back into the realm of the elaborate. Well, if the army really was standing right at his doorstep, they probably wouldn't be very intimidated by some half-dressed slob in sweatpants. If anything, they'd laugh him right out of town. He couldn't allow such a travesty. Moreover, his pride simply wouldn't stand for it. There were certain standards a man had to meet, after all. Striking fear into the hearts of his enemies was one. So he put on his Sunday best. Nay, Katori. What? The redhead squeaked at the sudden inquiry, peeking through her hands as a pitch-black aura stemmed from his shoulders and slowly engulfed his body from head to toe. She wasn't looking, or so she told herself. Nope. No peeking. Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Have you ever watched Overlord? Her foster brother inquired happily. You know I don't watch anime, Naruto ni-chan. Ah. Slim shoulders slumped. Too bad. I was going to make a nice quote, there. Guess the armor will have to do. Armor. Dark pauldrons and gold-embossed vambraces blossomed into existence where none had been before, lending an aura of menace. Followed shortly by greaves, then boots, a breastplate, and a flowing red cape draped over a shoulder. Another thought called a pair of towering, greatswords to his back, crossed in the distinctive shape of an X in all their sheathed glory. Even then they radiated wisps of shadow. That was their purpose. He was going for a look of absolute menace, attempting to drive his point home. In a rare fit of glee he banished the helm, leaving his whiskered face bare, faint shadows masking his eyes. It did not, however, mask the look of primordial glee on his features. The name Naruto does not know defeat. That was a reference, wasn't it? Indeed. He grinned. A facepalm followed. My brother, the otaku. Libel. Anime is love, anime is life. Katori simply sighed and fought the urge to burn Naruto's cape. By the time they'd finished cresting the stairs he was fully garbed in a dark in his mind and thoroughly menacing suit of armor. While this couldn't compare to the sheer shock factor of strutting about in his birthday suit, he found it acceptable all the same. After all, it wouldn't do to greet his guests in the buff, after all. No matter how amusing it might be to see the looks on their faces. Meh. A prank for latter. Ah, opportunities. He'd try to use them on the next squad who came knocking. If they came knocking. So, he chimed, wanna come with? I'm going to put on a bit of a show. Katori blinked. What? A show? The blonde elucidated with a chipper grin. Whoever they are, they had the nerve to show up at our doorstep. Our home. If I don't send them packing Westcott and the others will think they can just walk all over us and rata OSKR. Ergo, we need to bring the boot down on them. Hard. How hard? Like Thor's fucking hammer. Again, you've lost me, Naruto ni. You need to watch more television, oi. There was a spring to his step now, she noted, one that had not existed before. As if someone had lifted great and terrible burden from his shoulders. He seemed almost chipper. Well, as chipper as a god masquerading as a human could be, she supposed. It was downright infectious. She all but nearly forgotten just how contagious Naruto's unique brand of lunacy could be when he really got going. Honestly, it was almost enough to make Katori look forward to the hell her dear brother was about to unleash. That cheer lasted until they reached the living room and she saw Kurumi. There she was. The sneaky little harlot lay sprawled out across the couch as if she owned the damn thing, a sleepy smile adorning her pale visage. Worse, she was wearing one of Naruto's shirts, one of her beloved brother's shirts, while she snuggled the covers. Or was she? She thought she caught sight of a half-lidded eye watching her, but that might had for a fleeting moment. Katori honestly considered burning her and saving herself a world of trouble. It would only require the slightest application of her power and... Katori, Naruto's voice cracked like a whip, we do not burn our guests. Even if they deserve it. Damn. Gritting her teeth in a withering glare for the slumbering Blackett, she marched out the door after him. The red yang barrier parted like water before her passage, allowing her entry. Reality snapped back before her very eyes, exposing her to the waning morning light. Allowing her to see their so-called guests. They certainly weren't from the JGDSF, and neither was the palpable aura of bloodlust emanating for their leader. Sporting long curly dark red hair and fox-like icy blue eyes, she wore a combat realizer unit with dark pink and grayish red as the main color scheme. That was slightly startling by herself, but it was the way her cold gaze snapped to Naruto that left alarms ringing in the back of the redhead's mind. There was a strange hunger there in that gaze, a longing for battle that instantly put her on edge. As did those of her minions, with their lesser, blue-black suits doing nothing to convey the looks of absolute loathing she saw in their eyes. Lots of the new combat realizers here. This might be troublesome after all, she thought. Well. Naruto began sharply, tilting his head to regard the gaggle of girls assembled before them. What do you insects want with me? Have you come to submit your lives? Or perhaps pledge your souls to your new overlord? If you submit yourselves quietly, I promise to make your deaths painless. PFFT. It took every fiber of Kotori's being not to burst into laughter then and there. Had she done so, she was certain to have ruined the moment. That, and the looks of utter dread carved into their faces. And to think, she'd actually been worried. Naruto seemed intent on putting on a show again, and today, she found herself inclined to let him have his way. Worth it. In every conceivable way. Indeed, several shrank back at the sight of the armored titan and his rumbling voice, but the one in pink did not. To Kotori's surprise and dismay, she stepped forward to meet the blonde, staring up at him with impunity. You are under suspicion of harboring a known spirit. Their leader stated. Give yourself up and submit to questioning at once. Divine silence was the blonde's humble reply. Did I not make myself clear, scum? What's the password? A rapid blink. Ha. The password. Naruto repeated jovially, clicking his tongue in disapproval. A few folks in the JGSDF know it. Mana does, too. Since you don't, I'd wager she's not with you on this. You see, I have a bit of leeway with them. They don't bother me and I don't turn them inside out. You on the other hand. Might I ask your name? Jessica Bailey. With a supreme effort of will, Katori bit back the instinctive urge to stomp her into the ground. Naruto merely laughed. It was a deep, throaty sound. A noise that had no business issuing forth from a human throat. And yet it did all the same, and something in her shrank away in fear. My dearest apologies, then. Naruto replied, shooting the haughty Jessica a patronizing look. I'm sorry, but I'm a very selfish person. And right now these girls have given meaning to my life. They've given me a purpose again, something to do, to be, when I had nothing at all. So, no. I'm afraid I won't be letting you take them. There's only 2 of you. She challenged. I have 8. Have you ever watched an anime, Jessica-chan? A blink. Why would I watch that crap? Fair enough. Do you believe in God, then? No. Well, that's a pity. The blonde sighed, a dark cloud of depression falling over his features. Oopsie, back in my day I was something of a big shot, so trust me when I say I've got this. A hand rose and fell, dismissing her and her squad with a negligent gesture. So now that you know, you and your girls can just run along home. Yes, as a matter of fact, you should do that. Now. Right fucking now. Because I don't like being woken up this early in the morning and I enjoy being bitched at by little girls who don't know their place even less. As she looked on, that very same hand twitched, producing a sickening pop as his fingers clenched, knuckles popping loudly. If you don't. Azure eyes narrowed. Well, I can't guarantee your safety. Is that supposed to frighten me? If anything, he rose to the quip. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto replied, reaching from one of the massive blades upon his back. Former leader of Konoha, pariah and ramen extraordinaire. The weapon flew free with an explosive hiss, metal grinding against the well-oiled sheath as the curved sword ripped itself free. Did you know there was once a time long ago when everyone in this world knew my name? Since those days, I have walked this world dozens of times over, unraveled its many mysteries and secrets. I am a fuck-mothering god, who killed a lot of people to get this title, and deserve to be called such. And, no, none of that was meant to frighten you. Blue eyes burned red. This, however, is. Then hell came to earth. For a fleeting instant, Jessica Bailey saw her death in those eyes. As though she'd stared into the face of the Reaper himself. An immense, almighty pressure crashed down on her soldiers. As if an entire ocean had just opened up and drenched her in a raw river of dread. She saw herself die 1,000 different deaths in a heartbeat, the span of a single blink, all locked in her mind's eye. Slowly that hand seemed to rise before her gaze, fingers beckoning, crooking into a claw. Naruto. Kurumi's voice sang from within the house. What's for breakfast? Just like that, the visage of death vanished. Pancakes, of course. He called back. In one smooth movement he turned his back on her and the pressure abated. Well, he remarked, that's how it is. I suggest you leave, now. What, just like that? Katori balked, quietly incredulous. Just like that. He affirmed. She's of no threat, now. Face flaming, the brunette clambered to her feet. How dare he? A red haze draped itself across her vision, stripping away all sense. Distantly, she was aware of her subordinates calling out to her, but only just. As though that sea of dread from before had stripped her of her senses, leaving only an empty shell behind. A husk, filled with sound and fury, a singular, all-encompassing rage. How dare he? Did he think this would be enough to drive her off like some hapless schoolgirl? Just a little intimidation. Of all the unmitigated gall. Now he dared to walk away from her. To deny her the satisfaction she sought. The bastard. The absolute bastard. Trembling, she tried and failed to point her weapon at him, only to find that her hand was shaking so badly she could no longer grasp it in her palm. The realization fanned the flames of her indignation to an all-time high, and the brunette felt something break in her. How dare he arrest him? Naruto sighed. 2 fingers rose lazily. That's far enough. A blue nimbus of light encompassed the Dem soldiers mid-lunge even as they lunged towards his unprotected back, the very air itself betraying them as their world burned blue. Jessica, proud, arrogant, stupid Jessica Bailey barely had time to balk at it, to realize her monumental mistake before gravity took hold of her. Still the burning light grew ever brighter, searing her eyelids when she tried to close them. In her heart of hearts, some part of her knew. Some small, infinitesimal slice of her soul knew what was coming, felt it as the very air itself began to burn. Throughout it all, the blonde deity simply observed her plight with a small smile. Oh, dear. He hummed quietly. I seem to have broken you. So fragile. Leaning forwards, he tucked an armored hand beneath her chin. I'll be using you to send your master a message, Jess-chan. The vice tightened, and the chakra in the air burned anew. Naruto's smile stretched across his face in an ugly grin. Goddard. Fallen down. It was then, as the light took her, that Jessica Bailey knew. She'd fucked up.
Preview. Era, that was very impressive. Wop. Kurumi yelped. Why are you doing this? Because your little stunt from yesterday had the army on my ass. The blonde replied, leaving the blackette to massage her throbbing rear. Red-faced, she turned her. His hand descended sharply. Spank no jutsu.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like this video if you want some more what if video. Comment 3 hearts for more what if.